Have you ever heard of the Benin bronzes?
I haven't, no.
Well, picture this uh, exquisite bronze sculptures
Oh, wow.
and intricate ivory carvings,
Okay.
not just, tucked away in some museum,
Right.
but actually used, in ceremonies and
That's
rituals
interesting.
for centuries. These
Yeah.
aren't just art pieces. They're like
Right.
historical documents,
Hmm.
spiritual anchors, and they're symbols of a kingdom's power.
Wow.
So today we're going to do a deep dive
Okay.
into the captivating story of the Benin bronzes, a
Yeah.
story that really intertwines art and history
Mm-hmm.
and the impacts of colonialism.
Definitely. A lot to unpack there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And to really get into that journey,
Mm-hmm.
we need to start in the Kingdom of Benin.
Okay.
Now, this isn't the modern-day country of Benin, is it?
You're right. It's not.
Okay.
We're talking about the Kingdom of Benin, also known as the Kingdom of Edo,
Okay.
which flourished in what is now Nigeria. And they controlled a large part of the Niger River Delta
Right.
for centuries.
Yeah.
From around 1180 AD to 1897.
That's a long time.
Yeah, long reign. Yeah.
What made this kingdom so powerful?
Yeah.
What do we know?
Well, they had a sophisticated society
Okay.
with a really complex system of guilds
Mm.
for their artisans,
Okay.
including specialized guilds for metal workers
Mm-hmm.
and brass casters.
Okay.
And their workshops, this is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
They actually still exist in Benin City today.
Wow.
So there's a tangible link
Too.
to the creators of these incredible bronzes.
It's amazing to think about, those workshops
Yeah.
still there, keeping those traditions alive.
See?
So they were obviously very skilled artisans.
Yeah.
But what about their power, on the world stage?
So at their peak
Oh.
in the 16th century,
Mm-hmm.
they commanded a very formidable military presence.
Okay.
And they engaged in pretty extensive trade networks. Now, sadly, part of that trade
Okay.
involved their participation in the slave trade,
Right.
which is a dark chapter
Yeah.
that adds another layer of complexity to their story.
It's a stark reminder that, even these powerful kingdoms
Yeah.
weren't immune to the forces that shaped global history, both good and bad.
Exactly.
So we have this kingdom of skilled artisans
Yeah.
with a rich culture, a complex history.
Mm-hmm.
And from this world, the Benin bronzes emerge.
Right.
But are they really just made of bronze?
Well, the name's a bit deceiving.
Okay.
While bronze is a primary material,
Right.
the collection also includes pieces crafted from brass,
Mm-hmm.
ivory, and coral,
Wow.
each reflecting the exceptional artistry of the Edo people.
I've seen pictures and the detail is just
Yeah, it's quite something.
incredible. They're not just statues.
No,
They feel like they're telling a story.
they really do.
And you're getting at something crucial there.
Yeah.
These bronzes weren't just decorative.
Right.
They served a dual purpose.
They did.
They reflect both the history and the spiritual beliefs
Exactly.
of the Edo people.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued. Tell me more about this dual purpose.
Okay, so on one hand,
Mm-hmm.
they served as a type of historical record.
Okay.
Now, the Edo people primarily relied on oral traditions.
Right.
But these bronzes acted as a visual complement,
Okay.
depicting significant events like military victories,
Okay.
and they even reflected the political leanings of their rulers, the Oba.
So imagine these bronzes, almost like, their version of
Right.
history books, but way more artistic,
Exactly.
imbued with meaning.
Right.
But their significance goes beyond documenting history.
It does.
So tell me about that. What was the spiritual life like?
So they played a really vital role
Okay.
in their spiritual life as well,
Mhm.
specifically in their ancestor veneration
Okay.
and the concept of divine kingship.
Okay.
So picture this. Altars adorned with these bronzes, honoring deceased Obas,
Okay.
serving as like a tangible link
Yeah.
between the living and the spiritual realm.
It's incredible how much history and meaning
It's really quite something.
is packed into these objects.
Yeah.
It's like holding a piece of their world in your hands.
Yeah.
But as we know, the story takes a turn.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And the British Empire enters the picture.
Right.
The late 19th century, this was the peak
It was.
of European colonialism in Africa,
Mm-hmm.
often referred to as the scramble for Africa.
Right, the scramble for Africa, yeah.
driven by industrial ambition,
Mm-hmm.
a sense of superiority.
Yeah.
European powers carved up the continent,
They did.
paying little regard to the existing African nations.
Yes. No
It's almost impossible to imagine.
It's hard to believe, yeah.
The Berlin Conference of 1884-85,
Yeah.
where these powers just sat around a table
Right.
and decided, who gets what slice of Africa?
It was a blatant power grab.
Absolutely. And the Kingdom of Benin, of course,
Yeah.
with its control over key trade routes in the Niger Delta,
All right.
became a prime target
Yeah.
for the British, who were determined to solidify their dominance.
Exactly.
So we have this collision course set
Yeah.
between a long-standing African kingdom
Right.
and the expanding British Empire.
Right.
What happened next?
So tensions reached a boiling point in 1897.
Okay.
A British emissary,
Mhm.
James Robert Phillips,
Okay.
he defied the Oba's direct orders,
Okay.
and he entered Benin City during a sacred festival,
Okay.
and he and his men were ambushed.
Oh, wow.
And this incident was swiftly used as justification.
Oh, so they were looking for any excuse
Oh, yeah.
to go in.
They needed a reason, yeah.
So this so-called punitive expedition
Right.
was really just a land grab.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A thinly veiled land grab.
Tell me about this punitive expedition.
Okay, so Admiral Sir Harry Rawson led a force of 1,200 British soldiers.
Okay.
They faced resistance from Ido warriors,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately they overwhelmed them and captured Benin City.
Oh, wow.
What followed was a systematic looting of the palace,
Oh, gosh.
including the seizure of the Benin bronzes.
I can't even imagine witnessing that.
Yeah, it would be devastating.
Kind of cultural plunder.
Yeah.
How did the British react when they first saw these bronzes?
So the reactions were mixed.
Okay.
And it's here that we
Ah.
really see the ingrained racism of the time.
Right.
Some British officers dismissed them as crude.
Okay.
Others, while they were impressed by the craftsmanship,
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't fathom
Right.
that African artisans were capable of such skill.
Right.
They attributed the bronzes to Egyptian or Chinese influence.
Wow.
Anything but acknowledging the Edo people's artistic brilliance.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's really sad.
And infuriating.
Yeah.
So after the looting, where did these stolen artifacts end up?
Yeah. Tragically, they were scattered.
Oh, wow.
A significant number ended up in the British Museum,
Okay.
while others were sold
Right.
to museums and private collectors worldwide.
Oh, wow.
Some were even kept as trophies
Oh, gosh.
by the soldiers that participated in the raid.
Awful.
So imagine these priceless objects,
Yeah.
once central to Edo culture and religion,
Right.
now displayed in glass cases thousands of miles from their home.
It's a stark reminder of the lasting damage
It is.
of colonialism.
Huh.
But it sounds like their story
It
doesn't end there.
No.
There's been a movement
Right.
to return these bronzes.
It has. You're absolutely right. The
Yeah.
fight for the repatriation of the Benin bronzes
Yeah.
has been a long and complex one,
Yeah.
gaining momentum
Oh.
after Nigerian independence in 1960.
Okay.
It's a story of resilience,
Mm-hmm.
a determination to reclaim what was stolen,
Right.
and a challenge to the very notion
Yeah.
of colonial ownership.
Absolutely. And it really resonates far beyond
It does.
just these objects, right?
It does, yeah.
It speaks to a broader movement for cultural justice
It does.
and decolonization.
Absolutely.
But before we go any further,
Mhm.
there's one more fascinating twist to the story
Yeah.
that we need to explore.
Okay.
And it involves the very metal
Okay.
used to create many of these bronzes.
All right, I'm listening.
So remember how we talked about the Kingdom of Benin's involvement
I do.
in the slave trade,
Yes.
particularly with the Portuguese?
I do, yes.
Well, scientific analysis has revealed
Okay.
that the brass used in many of these pieces
Mm-hmm.
originated from a surprising source,
Oh, really? What's that?
manillas.
Manila's. Oh.
Well, manillas were brass rings
Okay.
used by the Portuguese as currency
Interesting.
in the slave trade.
Oh, wow.
So you're telling me that the very metal that fueled the exploitation of African people
Right.
was then transformed
Yeah.
into these incredible works of art
Right.
that celebrated Edo culture.
That's the irony.
Wow.
It adds a poignant layer
Yeah.
to the whole story.
It's like the bronzes themselves
Yeah.
are bearing witness
Yeah.
to those complexities,
Yeah.
holding both the beauty
Mm-hmm.
of Edo culture and the weight of their history.
It makes the fight for their return
Yeah.
even more significant.
So you mentioned that the repatriation movement
Yeah.
really gained momentum after Nigerian independence
It did.
in 1960.
Yes.
What sparked those initial efforts?
Well, as awareness of the injustices of colonialism grew, so too did the desire among Nigerians
Okay.
to reclaim their stolen heritage.
Right.
It's important to remember that even during colonial rule, the Edo people never forgot
Right.
about the Benin bronzes.
Yeah.
They remained culturally and spiritually significant.
So it was more than just
I'm just
wanting
thinking-
objects back.
Yeah.
It was about righting a wrong, about reclaiming a part of their identity.
Exactly.
But I imagine it hasn't been easy.
It hasn't, no.
What kind of resistance did they face?
You're right, it hasn't been easy at all.
Yeah.
For decades,
Yeah.
Western museums and institutions resisted calls for repatriation.
Oh, wow.
They used arguments like,
Yes.
being better equipped
Sure.
to care for the bronzes, that they were holding them in trust for the world.
Right. Like a paternalistic,
Exactly.
very paternalistic.
We know what's best for you attitude.
Oh, exactly.
So infuriating.
Yeah.
But despite the resistance,
Yeah,
Nigeria and the Edo people persisted.
they did.
They organized exhibitions, published research,
Yeah,
lobbied international organizations
we did.
to try to put pressure
Yeah,
on the museums holding these artifacts.
exactly.
So it was a fight on multiple fronts,
It was.
cultural, political, even legal.
Right.
And over time,
Yes.
that pressure started to yield results.
It did.
What were some of those breakthroughs?
Okay.
Have any of the bronzes actually been returned?
There have been some significant victories.
Okay.
In 2021, a brass casting of a cockerel
Okay.
was returned
Okay.
by Jesus College, Cambridge.
Wow.
That marked a real turning point.
Yeah.
A crack in that wall of resistance.
And that must have been a powerful moment.
It
The
was.
symbol of hope.
It was.
So since then,
Yeah.
how many have been returned?
So since then, hundreds of bronzes
Oh.
have been returned to Nigeria.
Okay.
Or are now under Nigerian ownership.
Okay.
Some are still physically located in museums abroad,
Okay.
but they are now on loan.
Oh, good.
So there's been progress,
Yeah.
but there's still a long way to go.
What are some of the challenges still?
So the British Museum,
Okay.
for example, which holds one of the largest collections,
Right.
has been incredibly resistant to relinquishing ownership.
It's astonishing how
Yeah.
some institutions just continue to cling. Yeah, it's really quite something.
When the moral argument
It's so clear.
is so clear.
It is.
But it speaks to a larger struggle, doesn't it?
It does.
Over who gets to control history,
Yeah,
whose voices are privileged.
exactly.
But the debate goes beyond just getting the bronzes
It does.
back to
John.
Nigeria.
Right.
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 Tell me about that.
There's an ongoing discussion within Nigeria
Okay.
about who should ultimately have ownership
Oh.
of the returned bronzes.
So it's not even
It's not simple. No.
a simple question of getting them back.
No.
It's-
It's more complex than that.
Who they go back to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
So should it be the Oba and the royal family,
Okay.
considering their historical
Mhm.
and religious significance,
Right.
or should it be the Nigerian state
Oh,
to be displayed in national museums,
right.
accessible to all Nigerians?
Wow. That's a tough question.
It is.
And both sides
Yeah.
have valid points.
Yeah.
This is so complex,
It's a very...
but so interesting.
Yeah.
It highlights these issues
It does.
surrounding cultural heritage and restitution.
Yeah.
Whose story do these objects truly tell?
Exactly.
And who has the right to control that narrative?
Those are really important questions.
It really is.
And these are questions that go far beyond
Yeah.
just the Benin bronzes.
Yeah.
And they touch on the legacy of colonialism globally.
It's a reminder
It is.
that the fight for cultural justice doesn't end
Right.
with the physical return of objects.
Exactly.
It requires deeper conversation
It does.
about representation, ownership,
Mm-hmm.
and the ongoing process of decolonization.
Right.
So much to think about. It's a powerful reminder that decolonization isn't just about physical objects. It's about reclaiming narratives and agency. So where does this leave us? Where does the story of the Benin bronzes go from here?
Well, the repatriation process has been slow, at times frustrating, but I think the tide is turning.
Hopefully, yeah.
More and more museums and institutions are recognizing the moral imperative to return these stolen artifacts.
Right.
It's becoming increasingly difficult to justify
Yeah.
holding on to objects acquired through these acts of colonial violence.
You would think so.
I would think, right.
It feels like there's a growing global awareness
I think so.
of these issues, a sense that we just can't ignore the injustices of the past.
I agree. And as that awareness grows, I think we'll see even more Benin bronzes return to their rightful home.
That's good.
But as we've discussed, repatriation is just one step
Right.
in a much larger process.
What are some of the next steps?
Well, I think it's crucial
Yeah.
to create spaces for dialogue and collaboration.
Okay.
We need to listen
Mm-hmm.
to the voices of the Edo people,
Right.
understand their perspectives,
Well,
and work together to ensure that these objects are displayed and interpreted in a way that honors their history and culture.
so moving beyond
Yeah.
a purely Western perspective.
Yes, exactly. Recognizing that these objects hold different meanings and values
Right.
for different people.
Absolutely.
It's about ensuring that the return of the Benin bronzes
Mm-hmm.
leads to genuine cultural exchange and understanding,
Yeah,
not just shifting ownership.
that's a really good point. As we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to ponder?
Okay, so here's a thought to chew on.
All right.
We often talk about these bronzes as objects, as works of art.
Mm-hmm.
But what if we considered them as witnesses?
Oh,
Witnesses to centuries of history,
Yeah.
to the rise and fall of a powerful kingdom, to the brutality of colonialism.
That's a powerful image. They
Yeah.
silently observed so much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And their presence in museums today, far from their original context,
Right.
serves as a constant reminder of these intertwined narratives.
So the next time you encounter a Benin bronze,
Yeah.
don't just admire its beauty. Think
Yeah.
about its story, its journey,
Yes.
what it can teach us
Mm-hmm.
about the complexities of history, culture,
Right.
and our shared responsibility to protect and preserve cultural heritage.
Exactly.
You've given us so much to think about today.
It's a fascinating topic, isn't it?
It really is. This has been a real eye-opener for me.
Yeah.
I hope it has been for our listeners as well.
Yeah, I hope so too.
The Benin bronzes are more than just beautiful objects.
Right.
They're symbols of resilience,
Mm-hmm.
reminders of injustice,
Yes.
and powerful catalysts for important conversations
Yeah.
about our collective past
Right.
and the future we want to build.
Well said. Their story is a testament to the enduring power of art and culture, even in the face of immense adversity.
And thankfully,
Thank you.
it's a story that is still being written.
It is.
We'll be watching, listening, and learning
Yeah.
as it unfolds. Thanks for joining us
Thanks for having me.
on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.